secrets. She was the wife of known gangster David Sukar, and through him had close ties to Sydney's seedy underbelly. Her other secret isn't as surprising once you know the first one. David wasn't the only one with criminal ambition. Sarah loved the lavish side of life. It wasn't uncommon to see her in designer clothing and accessories, even when she dressed down. Everything she surrounded herself with would make you think she was the CEO of some Fortune 500 company. However, her love of money came from a simpler and more sinister place. She's the wife of an infamous criminal in the Australian underground. Many assume the money her husband's lifestyle brought in fueled her lust for a designer life. Regardless, Sarah wore top-of-the-line gear all the time and was even arrested in a pair of golden designer slides. With her luxurious lifestyle on display for all to see, it might be surprising to learn that she worked at a St. George bank in Sydney, Australia. Just like everything else in her life, Sarah figured out how to use it to her advantage. Refusing to be outdone by her husband and live in his shadow, she started her own criminal syndicate. She even got a few people on the inside to go along with her. They began a routine of fraudulent financial crimes that would net them $500,000 over 4 years. With all the money she could steal, it would seem like Sarah's group was able to pull off some large-scale crime. They used their knowledge of finances and their access at the bank to run scams on unsuspecting customers. The crimes themselves targeted real customers that frequented the bank and their identities. They would use customers' personal information to open up fraudulent accounts without their consent or knowledge. Then, using these same accounts, the sophisticated fraud syndicate that Sarah had created began applying for loans. This was the first step in a plan that would cause years of financial suffering to many innocent people. When someone applies for a loan, they know they have to pay it back or risk severe damages to their credit score. Sarah's scam was no exception. The money Sarah withdrew using these people's identities counted against them. Even if the banks wiped the slates because of the crime, it still would not fix the pain and suffering caused by Sarah and her cronies. Once the fake accounts were approved for the loans, Sarah began shuffling the money around. Sarah and her partners in crime did this by using their own access as bank employees. They moved over $300,000 into just one account, while the rest of the ill-gotten gains were spread amongst several accounts. The whole crux of her operation was stealing identities. During one arrest, 8 identifications for different people were found on her person. There was even evidence that she swiped a sticky note with someone's address and date of birth written on it. By the end of the whole scheme, they stole around $590,000, over half of that coming from one elderly retiree. They took every bit of savings the victim had, and from what the prosecution alleged, they used it to purchase designer goods. Taking someone's life savings to fuel your own vanity is pure evil. Sometimes it's said that the crime isn't that bad when there is no violence involved. Still, the emotional hit from losing everything you have can be just as damaging. It takes a certain mentality to come up with a sophisticated fraud network. Most people never consider crime as an option, even when they're down on their luck. However, Sarah's whole environment was organized crime, so it makes sense why she would go in that direction. Her husband is a well-known player in organized crime and could have easily taught her how to exploit openings. The act itself seemed like a mix of their expertise. Sarah knows finances due to her job at the bank, and David knows the criminal world and how it works. David came from a war-torn Lebanon where he must have witnessed some terrible things. He got involved in drug smuggling at a young age.